I would like to reconvene the meeting and call this meeting to order for the City Council meeting of January 16, 2018. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Boyson?
Here.
Councilmember Cordero?
Here.
Councilmember Moats?
Here.
Councilmember Waterfield?
Here.
And Madam Mayor Patino?
Here. Mr. Stillwell, at this time, could you please give us an update on what's happening down in Montecito and in Santa Barbara?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. On Sunday afternoon, the Sunday before last, January 7th, staff began preparing for that storm that passed through the area. We had begun cleaning out our drainage ditches. We expected some damage here, but we're lucky and didn't have much damage other than some isolated flooding in a few places. With the staff on high alert, when the county called and said there's damage in Montecito, we were ready. We were up and ready to respond to the request. So we had sent down staff from across the city to help in Montecito, and as they took the brunt of the storm's impact. And I think David Bayes here has some before and after pictures of what the storm did. And this is from a newspaper website that I think illustrated it pretty well. So you have San Ysidro Creek from a year ago, and then it slides over and shows how it was burned and what the impact is and how the mud flow came down from the bottom corner heading south. And then if you want to scroll down to the that's a picture that I think we've all seen with the damage there, and that's the Knollwood area. And then again, that's the before, and then afterwards, you can see just how the mud went down the area and just really devastated that neighborhood. And then there's a couple more photos here as you approach 101 and the ocean. So you could really see the impact why the freeway's been closed for so long. And that's the Miramar area. And again, it's just, covered the whole area in mud, and the mud flowed down to the beach. And then there's, I think, one more, or is that it? One more? Yeah, so Olive Mill at 101. So right in the heart of Montecito there. And again, it's just the mud on the freeway and, a massive impact. And, as you look close to this, you can see the damaged and destroyed homes. And as of this morning, there are 115 destroyed homes, 242 damaged single-family homes, 20 fatalities, 28 injuries, and still missing 3. And so we were happy to be able to assist them. I wish it was under better circumstances, but we were glad we were able to assist. We had sent our fire department specialized search and rescue unit with 6 staff for search and rescue and recovery. We anticipate them to be there for another 90 days or so.
They'll be back.
Yeah, so it's a long process for fire. Utilities sent 4 staff, 2 vehicles, 2 teams for reestablishing potable water system. We sent police sergeant, 5 officers committed around the clock for assisting through January. It was through January 13th. And we sent communications staff to the Joint Information Center to answer calls from the media, translate information for the public, update social media sites, get the word out. And then we also are fortunate we have an emergency services specialist who's focused on managing an emergency operations center. That's Roy Duggar. We were able to send him down to help with that as well. So we'll be back and forth down there assisting them as we can while still maintaining the presence here in the city to provide the services we're required to do. And as an aside, it is a declared disaster, so the funding for this for all the responders and people who are down there recovering is mostly paid by federal money and also state money. So that concludes the update.
Thank you, Mr. Stillwell. I would like to take a moment of silence at this point in memory of those lost in the floods and the mudslides down in Santa Barbara. And our hearts go out to all their families following this tragic turn of events. Thank you. City Attorney, Mr. Trujillo, could you please give us an update on the closed session report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There is no reportable action for each of the 5 items on the closed session agenda. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Trujillo. The first order of business is the presentation of the 2018 Hometown Heroes and Recreation and Parks Director, Mr. Posada, will be making the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Thank you for having us back again and this opportunity to recognize our hometown heroes. The program was started just over a year or so ago, and the idea was to give the community an opportunity to recognize members of the armed forces, either active, retired, community members, people who've made their lives here in Santa Maria. We've had a partnership with American Legion, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and last cycle we went through, we had the Elks participate significantly in that. So tonight we're here to present the 19 members of the third class of Hometown Heroes 2018. And what I'd like to do is ask Commander of the Disabled American Vets, Joseph Skota, to join Mr. Smitherman over here at the front of the room, and we'll be presenting the plaques in recognition of their service. The program started with an idea that other communities were doing this important recognition, and we identified the Bradley area as being a good place for this recognition to happen. It's a well-traveled area of the community, and so you'll find our Hometown Heroes banners hanging there for the next 6 months. And we'll come back to you in the June-July timeframe and bring you the next class of Hometown Heroes. But tonight gives me great pleasure to introduce our 2018 class of Hometown Heroes. First off, I'd like to ask Mr. Ed Murray to come forward. And Mr. Murray is well known in the community. He is a vet of the U.S. Air Force. So, Ed, congratulations and thank you so much for your service. Next, I'd like to introduce Mr. James Harney, the U.S. Army veteran. Come on up, Mr. Harney. Thank you, Mr. Harney. Great. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Posada, unaccustomed as I am of telling people what to do, could you please list the branch of the military that they're
Yes.
in? Thank you.
And Mr. Harney was a veteran of the U.S. Army. We're going to go back to Mr. James Ramos. Oh, here we are. Thank you. Mr. Ramos is a vet of the U.S. Army. We want to thank Mr. Ramos' family for representing him. Unfortunately, he did pass not too long ago, so we want to recognize them for coming forward and providing this recognition for Mr. Ramos. Thank you very much. The young man on the screen that you see now not only is a local veteran, of the U.S. Navy, but Mr. Joe Dominguez was also a longtime employee of the city of Santa Maria and was in charge of our urban forest for many years. So, Mr. Joe Dominguez. You can come in. You can come in.
And Mr. Dominguez is with the Navy.
Another name known in the community and participating in a lot of civic events and things is Mr. Lee Carroll, a veteran of the U.S. Army. Next, a veteran of the U.S. Army, Mr. Peter A. Ruiz, Sr. Come on in, Mr. Ruiz's family. Come on in, Pete. Come on in. They've, again, Ruiz family has been involved in the community doing many of our events for the city, and we appreciate their service. We certainly appreciate them recognizing Peter Ruiz Sr. The next gentleman I've known for a long time also. A great person, has been involved in helping our youth in the community over at the Maldonado Center. Responsible for a lot of electricity around the country. Mr. Richard Lee Graham, a member of the U.S. Navy. Congratulations, Dick. Dick also has the dubious honor of being the father of Jason Davey over at the Recreation Center, at the Youth Center. So, next, a member of the United States Marine Corps, Robert James Ortega. Next, a member of the United States Navy, Ron Johnson. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. A member of the United States Navy, Mr. Thomas M. Lynn, Jr. A member of the United States Army, Robert J. Allen. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Bob. So I get ahead of myself. Robert P. Hatch, a member of the U.S. Army, a decorated veteran, and also a past president and CEO of the Santa Maria Valley Chamber of Commerce. Bob Hatch. All right, now a member of the United States Army, Robert J. Allen. Again, we'll make sure Mr. Allen gets his certificate. Next, from the United States Navy, Serena Gardner. And next, from the United States Marine, Jordan Gardner. Next, the United States Air Force, Michael Stadnick, Jr. Many of you will recognize Mr. Stadnick from presiding at many of the veterans services around. He is a bugler and does taps for many of the services, funerals that we have, and also at our events that we have for vets. So thank you very much for your service, and thank you for your community involvement. Next, United States Army veteran, Mr. Dave Cross. I'll take the opportunity to recognize Dave and Bob Hatch also for they were the driving forces in creating the Veterans Memorial Monument over at the Maldonado Youth Center. And through their efforts every year, there's an event held there on December 7th of each year recognizing our vets. So thank you very much, Dave, for that service. A veteran of the United States Air Force, Mr. John Fazzone. For those of you that don't know, John has been the landmark of the Veterans Memorial Building over the years. He's been the adjutant there, working on relationships with the city as far as making arrangements for vets organizations to use the Veterans Memorial Building. And John, we want to thank you for that service. Thank you very much. And next, we'd like to recognize U.S. Army vet Craig Wicks Johnson. And we want to thank his family for bringing Craig's name forward. Craig was active in my Kiwanis Club. I know him as a very good community member and supporter of many events happening around the city. So thank you very much for bringing Craig up. Thanks. And finally, we'd like to recognize U.S. Air Force vet Russell James Doble. Thank you very much for recognizing all our vets tonight. We appreciate it. This is our 2018 class. We'll be looking for applicants for our 2018 summer class. The banners are $250, At the end of the 6 months that they're hanging, we will present them to the families of the vets if they wish to have them. And if you'd like more information, just contact the Recreation and Parks Department. And finally, if I can ask for one more round of applause for all our recognized. Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I could ask if we take a few minutes, if people would like to
Certainly,
exit.
certainly.
Thank you.
I want to thank all of you for your service, all of our men and women for the service to this country. We wouldn't be the kind of country we are without you. A country where people want to come and live, which is very obvious. Thank you. Thank you.
How great is that?
And you're all welcome to come back to future
Not yet.
meetings.
Give it some time. Give it some time. Well, they know what's going on. They wouldn't want to disrespect anything like this. Well, that's good.
Nice to see you. Good to see you. So we'll get you hooked up on Friday, Friday afternoon, or we start after 11? After 11. Everybody, we might, maybe we can do photos on a different day. I mean, you go to the interview on Friday. Friday, the guys are usually have their clothes and stuff like that. You know, if that's okay, then we all in suits and stuff, or uniforms the other day.
We're going to run it the next Sunday, so we got time to do that.
And we can probably do some photos before. Well, however you want to do it. I don't know what you want to do with photos, but we'll all be available on Friday.
I should tell you that this is going to be my last, this story is going to be my last big story for the series. My wife works in ULA. Got a lot of clients, and she's going to so we're moving to Cape Canaveral. She's going to be in charge of inventory for her Houston small shop.
I hope that's a great move for you. And I hate to see you go there because you've been so wonderful to us here. Hi, Nancy.
Yeah, I'm going to miss everybody too. I'm excited. This is going to be my
Well,
last.
thank you. You've been a real prince with us, so thank you so much.
Our next order of business is a retirement resolution, and Councilmember Moats will be making the presentation.
This is Resolution 2018-01, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Santa Maria, California, commending Marcia Valentine, a Dispatcher 2, for her years of outstanding service to the City of Santa Maria and congratulating her on her retirement. Whereas Marcia Valentine has been employed by and has faithfully served the City of Santa Maria for nearly 23 years full-time and more than 7 years part-time, for a combined total in excess of 30 years. And whereas Marcia Valentine has been committed to treating all persons with dignity and respect, and her service has been with distinction and of the highest quality. And whereas Marcia Valentine has provided the residents of the community with extraordinarily professional law enforcement service and great compassion, and whereas Marcia Valentine, through her dedication, loyalty, and devotion to duty, has contributed measurably to the quality of life that residents and visitors enjoy in Santa Maria, and whereas Dispatcher 2, Marcia Valentine, retired from city service on January 10, 2018, now therefore it is hereby resolved by the City Council of the City of Santa Maria as follows. Marcia Valentine, Dispatcher 2, is commended for her faithful, distinguished, and devoted service to the community, is congratulated on her retirement, and the city wishes her and her family continued good health and many years of happiness. Passed and adopted at a regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Santa Maria, held this 16th day of January 2018.
Dr. Moats, I need a motion and a second before you run off. Okay. I have the motion.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion to adopt the resolution honoring Marcia Valentine for her years of service and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Moats.
Aye.
Councilmember Waterfield.
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero.
Aye.
Councilmember Boyce. Madam Mayor Patino.
Absolutely aye.
Now we
Okay,
can-
now you can. That's-
All those years of talking and you're not going to say anything?
Chief Hansen, would you like to say a few words?
I'd love to say something real briefly. 30 years behind that microphone is an awful long time, and it's a very, very difficult job that these dispatchers do in there. And, you know, they are the lifeline for the officers in the field, but they are that first person that a caller talks to when they need help. I listened to a dispatch tape the other day of a serious response to a serious crime, and the reporting party was absolutely hysterical. I couldn't tell one thing that that person was trying to say, and that dispatcher, within a matter of moments, had relevant, specific information that they'd elicited from that caller, and had the officers on the way and doing a good job on the thing. And they just do an absolutely phenomenal job. And it would be easy to lose your patience. It would be easy to get angry sometimes when you talk to people because they're upset, they're very emotional, and they just do a phenomenal job. And amongst a group that does a phenomenal job, Marcia was a standout. She just is always a consummate professional and just a joy to be around when you'd walk into the dispatch center and say hello. So thank you so very much for everything you did for us, Marcia.
Mr. Cordero.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, thank you very much, Marcia. You know, it doesn't seem like it was 30 years ago. I don't remember whether it was your first night, but it was certainly the first time that I was working with you, and it was suggested that I go up and say hello to the new person. And I remember thinking, is she old enough to even be here? And it was 30 years ago, and just as Chief Hansen said, it's been that way for you for a long time. And thank you for what you gave me.
Oh, and thank you, Marcia, for your contributions to the city. People like you make us look good, so thank you very much. Our next order of business is a proclamation, and Councilmember Waterfield will be making the presentation.
Madam Mayor, it is with great honor that I give this proclamation for respect for Life Week, and I'm truly grateful that the city of Santa Maria does honor the unborn and that we hold them in high esteem. And so, whereas for over 30 years, the Central Coast Citizens for Family and Life have been celebrating Respect for Life Week in Santa Maria. And whereas it is imperative that residents of the community defend human life at all ages and conditions of dependency and protect the disabled, the handicapped, and those defenseless in every way. And whereas this year's Respect for Life Week is being celebrated January 15th through January 21st, and whereas the local Life Walk will still take place on Sunday, January 21st, 2018, and whereas Respect for Life is a vital issue that invites full public awareness. Now therefore, Alice M. Patino, Mayor of the City of Santa Maria, hereby recognizes the week of January 15th through the 21st, 2018 as Respect for Life Week in the City of Santa Maria. And here to accept the proclamation is John Lindgren, who is so strong and involved in the respect for life at all stages. John.
Wow, thank you very much. It is an honor to be here, an honor to know that Santa Maria City Council esteems life the way you do. And I've had a few of you, Mayor Patino and Etta, to speak at our walk, which will be happening on the other side of the wall this Sunday. So we invite you all to come out if you'd like to at 2:30. Mayor Patino, council members, it is with great joy that the Central Coast Citizens for Family and Life accept this proclamation for Respect Life Week 2018. As you know, for over 30 years we have received this honor and do so humbly and with a great amount of respect and gratitude to the past and present council members here in Santa Maria. We believe that life starts at conception and should be treasured as the most precious of natural resources. The value of life is immeasurable and cannot be discounted as an option for purposes of convenience or selective reasoning. We stand firmly entrenched in this tug-of-war over the value of innocent life, both that of the womb and also dealing with end-of-life decision-making. Our Creator values life as a gift that is formed by His hand and a blessing that reaches from generation to generation. Somewhere we failed to realize how important it is to regard life as precious, and we became the decision maker on whether someone lives or dies. By this council's proclamation that life matters, should be respected, we are taking a step toward valuing life as what it was, and it always will be, precious. Make no mistake, we have a lot of work to do to convince those that do not share the life message. But every day, science and a spiritual awakening are turning even the hardest of hearts toward valuing life as an inalienable right, protected and cherished. This is our reasonable service. Thank you for taking a stand for life. God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. I'd like to give a little token of our appreciation, some lapel pins, if I could have this given to the, thank you very much, each member. It is a precious feat, a 10-week-old unborn baby in the backdrop of a red and blue ribbon that signifies the value of life. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda will be the public comment period. Madam Clerk, could you please read the criteria for the public comment period portion of the agenda?
This time is reserved to accept comments from the public on consent agenda items, closed session items, or matters not otherwise scheduled on the printed agenda this evening. Unless otherwise directed by the mayor, speakers will have 3 minutes to comment, Direction to staff may be given. However, state law does not allow action to be taken by the city council on matters not on the printed agenda this evening. Once the public comment period commences, no other speakers will be allowed to submit a request to speak form. And Madam Mayor, I have two to present.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Armenta?
Ernest Stephen Armenta, City of Santa Maria. I will be in opposition to the police department's recommendation to go into an agreement with Data Ticket Incorporated. What happens, ladies and gentlemen out there, you listening, see, when you, for us students at Hancock College, when we park and we don't read the signs, our own fault, we get a ticket. So what you do after you receive this ticket, you have to go to the Santa Maria Police Department to get a waiver fee. I mean, they sign it off that you did the correction, whatever it is. But then after that, you have to send your hard work money not to a corporation here or a business here in Santa Maria. You send it off to LA. You're actually going to send it off to Irvine, California. See, I'm in opposition to this because this is a pattern and practice from this council. Repeatedly, you refuse to give this opening up to bids for business people here in the city. I'd rather have a company located here in Santa Maria who hires people from Santa Maria, paying them, creating jobs. So I will be in opposition to this. This is not the way that you build a relationship when you have to come and pay fees to a company in LA. On December 5th, 2017, Council, we had an agenda item. It was additional dwelling units. And I think Mr. Cordero and Mr. Boyson and Waterfield and Ms. Patino, you heard Mr. Moats. His comments were on December 5th that I think this is a horrible law. I think this is the Garage Conversion Act of 2016. Now, you remember, this Mr. Moats is a shareholder and sits on the board of directors of the Community Bank of Santa Maria. So his business outside of this council is loan policy and marketing strategy. See, as a shareholder, every garage conversion, every time he finances a building contractor, he makes money. He puts money in his own pocket as a shareholder. See, but when he's on the city council, he criticizes the law. He says he wants to obstruct the law. That's what he said. You imagine if all of us here decided, hey, we don't like the law and we're going to obstruct it. We're going to circumvent it. We're going to go around the law. And this is what he said: to delay, to obstruct, to make additional dwelling the most onerous restrictions, to place that on property owners. Now, there's a lot of words you can call a person who plays both sides of the fields, but I can't use them here, Ms. Patino. But I tell you one thing for sure. Someone needs to expose. There should have been one of you that should have told them, hey, our job here is not to make law-abiding citizens' jobs harder. For the crooks, yeah. For those who violate the law, for the drug dealers and the violent people out there, we want to make it as hard as possible. But Ms. Patino, I'll end by this. Either you correct them, Mr. Moats, or I will make his life a living hell on the city council.
Thank you, Mr. Armenta. Then we have someone from Fighting Back, Santa Maria Valley.
Hello, Madam Mayor, City Council members. My name is Gina Cortez with Fighting Back Santa Maria Valley, and we brought our youth action group with us today to share some of the things that we've been working on in the community through our Drug Free Community Grant and share some of our efforts with you.
So, during the Thanksgiving break, we conducted some scans in the community.
These scans consisted of us going to stores like 7-Eleven, Red Eye Liquor Store, and just seeing like where they put the 21 and over signs and seeing what they place next to the liquor, if they place toys, if they place, balls that encourage minors or just young people to drink. And we put out surveys, and we asked for some managers to answer our surveys, and we only had one compliant person.
We did these to make the community better in hopes that minors would be less encouraged to and exposed to alcohol. So, yes.
So we brought our youth group here to share our items that we're doing with the kids, so we hope to bring our efforts and our results with you guys in the next upcoming months to share what our findings were at the stores and what the survey shows. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we move on, Mr. Stillwell, would you like to make any comments? Okay. Moving on to the consent calendar, Madam Clerk, could you please read item number 3?
Routine items are presented for City Council approval without discussion as a single agenda item in order to expedite the meeting. The consent calendar is approved by roll call vote with one motion. These items are discussed only on the request of council members.
Does anyone have items they wish to be pulled for discussion?
Madam Mayor, I
Yes.
just need to recuse myself from item G.
So do I.
Okay, that's it?
That's
Just
it,
read
yeah.
anyone
So
down
with
here?
that, I would make a motion that we approve the consent
Okay.
calendar with the exception of item G.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. It's been, there's a motion and a second to approve all the items except item G. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Boyson?
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Waterfield?
Aye.
Councilmember Moats? Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye.
You want a motion?
I do. I want a motion and a
Madam Mayor, I
second.
make a motion that we accept item G for the payment of warrants.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second to approve item G. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Moats?
Aye.
Councilmember Boyson? Councilmember Waterfield?
Abstain.
Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye. And I was going to mention it earlier, and I can mention it now, but J and K. On J, we have an application for the California Violence Intervention and Prevention, which is the CalVIP grant from the state of California, and this goes along with the mayor's task force. And so I wanted you to know that we have applied for that, and we've also, with this approval, applied for the grant funds to the California State Parks and Water Conservation Fund for a Santa Maria Sports Complex. And so we're still working on that sports complex that people in this community wanted. So that's it. So moving on to item number 4. The next order of business is the January appointments to boards and committees. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title?
The City Council will consider making appointments to the Measure U 2012 Citizens Oversight Committee and the Santa Maria Community Television Board, and direct staff to continue advertising vacancies on the Board of Appeals, Landmark Committee, Library Board of Trustees, and any other committees which there are current vacancies.
Thank you. Do we have any requests to speak?
No, Madam Mayor, we do not.
Do not. Okay. Okay, then you need to fill out a yellow slip. Okay.
And then, Madam Mayor, I would like
Okay.
to make an appointment, Madam Mayor.
Do you want me to give my report, or do you want her to
Oh,
speak?
you can go ahead and give your report now.
Okay.
And then she can fill it out.
Okay. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, the request before you tonight is to make various appointments to the boards I just mentioned. I'll present the boards one at a time for consideration for the appointment and council ratification. I'll begin with the Measure U 2012 Citizens Oversight Committee, which has one vacancy. Staff received one new application from John Childers Jr. for council's consideration. One nomination is to be made by Councilmember Waterfield to fill the unexpired term ending in January 2019. Following the nomination, the appointment is to be made by Madam Mayor Patino with ratification by the City Council.
And Madam Mayor, I would like to make that appointment to the Measure U 2012 Citizens Oversight Committee, that it be John Childers Jr.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded by everybody else, and Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Waterfield?
Aye.
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Boyson?
Aye.
Councilmember Moats?
Aye.
And Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye. Do we have any written correspondence at all?
No, Madam Mayor, we
Okay.
do not.
Okay.
And going on, there are 2 vacancies on the Santa Maria Community Television Committee. However, staff received only 1 application from the incumbent Kathy Staples. The appointment is to be made by Madam Mayor Patino with ratification by the City Council to fill a term ending in January 2020.
Okay. And before I say, because Ms. Staples would like to speak now, so.
Okay.
Madam Mayor and City Council, just a word of thanks and appreciation for your support for Santa Maria Community Television. It especially is important, the transparency that community television affords this city like none other is really commendable, and I'd like to personally, as well as, from the rest of the board and from Alan Sutterfield, say thank you for your constant support. It really makes a difference. And I get to see everything that's going on in the city because I get to watch you every other Tuesday night. Thanks once again.
Thank you, Ms. Staples. So, no other requests to speak?
No other requests to
Okay.
speak. And I'll just follow that up with indicating that we'll continue to advertise vacancies that we have open until they're filled.
Thank you. So I move to appoint Kathy Staples to the Santa Maria Community Television Committee.
Second.
It's been moved in second to appoint Ms. Staples. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye.
Councilmember Waterfield?
Aye.
Councilmember Boyson?
Aye.
Councilmember Moats?
Aye.
And Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
The next order of business is a public hearing. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title? Thank you, Ms. Staples, for serving. It's really appreciated.
The City Council will consider a recommendation of the Planning Commission to review a downtown permit to construct a 30,660 square foot, 4-story mixed-use building on a 0.3 acre site at the corner of Main Street and Broadway in the Gateway District of the Downtown Specific Plan.
Staff report is to be made by Community Development Director, Mr. Ng.
Good evening, Madam Mayor Patino, members of the council. This is an item for the Gateway Mixed Use Project on the intersection of Main and Broadway. This item was brought before you back in October of 2017, and this is back before you since the applicant has made some modifications to the plans. So I'll briefly go over some project details. Again, this is the project location. Here's an aerial photo. It's the northwest corner of Main and Broadway. And this is the floor plan. The ground floor is on the left-hand side. This has been modified since the last version you received back in October. In essence, what they did was narrow the commercial floor area to accommodate 1 additional row of parking. The previous plan had 1 row of parking, and this plan has 2 with a drive aisle providing access to the 2 rows of parking. The number of spaces provided here is 27 parking spaces. This is an increase from the original of 12. The commercial square footage did decrease. The last set of plans had a square footage of approximately 4,100 square feet. This has been reduced to about 3,300 square feet to make room for the parking. In addition, the number of apartment units has been reduced. What's proposed now is 27 apartments. So the number of parking spaces match the number of apartment units requested at a 1-to-1 ratio, 1 parking space for each apartment unit. This is the floor plan for the 3rd and 4th floor. And so 1st floor commercial, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th residential. It's a combination of 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. Even though it's a reduction in the number of units, the square footage for the apartments have been modified. They're slightly larger, but they're mostly a combination of 1- and 2-bedroom apartments. This map shows the surrounding area and shows the public parking spaces that are nearby. Even though the parking has been provided for the apartment units, and this does meet the downtown parking code, The commercial is still dependent on the surrounding parking areas. Now, the applicant has communicated to staff that the parking on site would be available to the commercial tenants during the daytime, and that during the evenings, that they would be reserved for the tenants. These are the proposed elevations. These have not changed too dramatically since the last time around. This is well articulated with tower features on the corners. This perspective is from the middle of the intersection, I guess, and you can tell that, again, this looks similar to the last time around. The third and fourth floor are recessed a little bit to provide balcony areas. And this is a perspective off of Main Street. And so you can see the access to the parking area below the apartments. And this is a perspective looking south on Broadway. And so the frontage that you see to the right is where the alley intersects Broadway. These are two-dimensional elevations. And these are some of the features of the building in terms of architectural details. Juliet balconies, Corbett's tower features, arched windows, recessed balconies, bronze storefronts. And this is a picture of an existing building of something that's similar. This is a building that is located in Santa Barbara. So the recommendation, I actually have a slightly modified recommendation given some timing with the growth mitigation fee program. Staff's recommendation is to approve the Gateway Mixed Use Downtown Permit. That's DT 2017-003, incorporated by reference and notwithstanding Santa Maria Municipal Code Section 8-15.06B, direct city staff to calculate the applicable growth mitigation fees for the project at the time the first building permit is applied for rather than the date of the approval of this project. Initially, there was some discussion of delaying the public hearing so that the growth mitigation fee can take in effect first, but we're providing this language so that we can still apply the revised growth mitigation fees to this downtown project. The applicant is here with the architect, and staff is also here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions of Mr. Ng? Ms. Waterfield?
I do. Can you go back to the second slide where it shows the parking slots? Okay. Now, you say there's 27 parking spaces right there. Now, are there some that are more narrow that you're counting as parking slots?
They are all standard dimension parking spaces.
Because when I count them, I don't come up with 27. So that's what I was wondering, if there's some kind of misdirection in that. And how many of those are handicap?
There's one ADA accessible parking space.
So then there's actually 26 then?
There's 26 standard and one accessible.
Okay. Now, for the commercial part of it, I thought I read somewhere in here that around 5 o'clock, the parking will change from commercial to residential. What happens if the commercial closes at 8 o'clock and there's customers that are using that, and what's going to happen then?
That's a question I'll leave for the applicant.
Okay.
Certainly there'll be some management.
Okay.
But the details I'll leave for the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Motz?
Yeah. Mr. Ng, was this plan resubmitted to the Planning Commission for consideration since we delayed it for the last time it came to us?
It was not.
Mr. Cordero?
if I understood you correctly, the commercial buildings have been made smaller, but the basic footprint of the residential remains the same. But the individual apartments, or the living quarters, has been changed and increased in square footage.
There's been changes in both the commercial square footage and residential. The commercial square footage has been reduced. The residential units, there's a reduction in the number of units from 31 to 27, but the units themselves have increased in size slightly as a result.
But the basic footprint of the residential
Is the same.
is as it was.
Yes. The architect says differently, so I'll allow the architect to describe the footprint differently.
So do we have comments then, or we can, the applicant?
Good evening. I'm Alex Cuevas with the architectural engineering firm, and I have Ben Nick Fargent here, the applicant and owner of the project. To answer your question about nice seeing you again, let me tell you what we did first. Last time I was here, I took your recommendation that we have to postpone the hearing. What I did, you said to me, come up with something, give me something. And that's exactly what we did. We reduced the size of the building completely. The building is also smaller than it was before because we had to comply with requirements from Caltrans also. As far as setback, they didn't want the building to be all the way to the property line for whatever reason. That's Caltrans. So second floor, third floor, and the fourth floor, they got a little bit narrow. Not much, but in order to comply with that, which made it easier to also reduce the number of units. Some of the units, like it was said, got a little bit bigger because you can't go 800, 200. You have to work with that. Mm-hmm. And we reduce it by follow your direction to 27 in order to get the 27 parking stalls that are required, one per unit. The parking stalls, to answer your question, they are a standard parking stall, 9 by 18, and they are 27. So they are 27 because a handicap stall should be considered a parking stall, not because it's handicap, it should not be counted as parking. Mm-hmm. So we do have 27 and 27 units. I don't know if I answered your question.
You did. You answered my question anyway.
Okay.
Mr. Cordero?
Now, could you explain the answer to the question that Ms. Waterfield was asking? What happens magically at 5 o'clock when the commercial business would theoretically close down and the switch takes place of now the parking is for residences? How is that going to be enforced or policed?
First, I'm very sorry I didn't show up in the last hearing. I was out of town. I apologize. It's nice to meet all of you. Before I answer the question, I want to thank all the staff in the city for helping us to develop such an attractive location in main corner of downtown. And it's been really a pleasure to work with all of the staff and city to come up with beautiful design that we created. It was really true partnership. Back to answer your question it's going to be a time that retail, they're going to shut down and the apartment they're coming in. We're going to have a manager at the site that they're going to control the traffic and parking in the area. We know all the residential, they are not going to get home at the same time. And by doing it, the manager at the site will control and make sure that it's going to be a parking spot for retail that they're going to be. And plus, there's going to be plenty of parking, city parking across the street and also on the side of the street. And those are 2 hours parking. So it's not going to be used for residents that they can park their car overnight. The parking space is going to be specified for residential, only for overnight parking. For commercial portion, if somebody going to go get a coffee, they can park in 2 hours city parking and pick up their car and leave.
Okay. Do you mind if I call you Ben? Because I
Sure,
know I'll butcher up your name if I don't. what you did is commendable, but I noticed that you're building basically residential-wise the same size. By your own definition, it's just a little bit narrower to accommodate the restrictions set by Caltrans. I don't understand how that pencils out. You've lost almost half your residences, but you built the same size structure, and I don't understand how that pencils for you. You built the same size facility, but you only have 27 instead of 49 residents.
No, original plan was 31. It wasn't 49. We lost 4 units, but we increased the size of the units. So basically, the loss of income for having more units, we're going to gain it based on the square footage. So it's not going to be, the loss come from the retail portion of it. We lost about 2,000 square foot, and that creates some problem, but that's a risk you take as a developer to come up with a product that is attractive and get approved by the city. I believe it did, the product we created, it's dynamite for the corner. It really covered the future vision of the downtown plan. It's beautified the area, and it will help that future development come online in the area. I mean, I've been thinking about this project for a long time. First was just give a facelift to the project, maybe put 7-Eleven or some market in there, or some cell phone. After talking to the city and knowing about what the future downtown plan is, I really, I said, this is not the way we should run. We should really think about a future. We should think of what's the best use of the location and just come up with a design that benefit the city and myself as a developer.
Okay, I see the project that we have down there now is it's an eyesore, and it's not nice to look at for our center of town. I think we'll all agree with that.
Sure.
But it's a smaller eyesore. If this thing doesn't work out and it doesn't pencil and we start having problems with the parking and all of these things, if that still develops, then we have impacted all the businesses that are currently serving us well. And not only do we have something that maybe isn't working, now we have something that's 5 times as big and maybe not working. So it still scares me that we're moving something in here that is totally brand new. The concept is, it's brand new to us, let's put it that way. It's not brand new to other areas of the state and probably the country. But it's a little spooky to me to put something like that big, with so many unknowns. We have a lot of promises here. We're going to put a manager in and so on and so forth. But the fact is, if there's no parking there, and the people who are in the business are parking, and I live there, I can go out and park in front of any one of these stores and block their services that they're now using. That can happen. There's no way you can change that. It's their parking place. Just you can do the same thing. I can do the same thing. I can park there and walk over here to city council. They can't do anything about it. That's public parking. So I wonder how big a risk we're taking by allowing something that just really doesn't fit. There's nothing else like that within a few blocks, where it's commercial and goes up 4 floors. You see what I'm saying?
Sure, but I spoke with the neighbors after we redoing the site plan. I spoke with Mike. I went and saw him last week. He is very much in support of the project. He liked the number of the parking we added. Having 27 parking spots from 12 is a huge increase. It's more than double number of the parking that we had in the previous plan. And by having those, first of all, we reduced the retail space. Now we got 3,000. We are not going to have 4 or 5 different retail in there. We might have 1 or 2 retailing at the side. So that number has reduced. So your concern for the retail has been reduced because the number of the square footage has been reduced. And things are different now. I look at it, my son, they don't use their car anymore. everybody using Uber if they're going to travel someplace. I understand this is Santa Maria, and, times are changing, and, people, they're using Uber to travel. They're using, Postmate to get their food delivered. They do online shopping. I mean, it's really different. I mean, people in the service spending money on leasing a car, gas, insurance. They're using public transportation. They're using a bike. As we go ahead, I'm not looking at this project for today. You got to look at it for 5 or 10 years down the road. When the downtown get developed, and I know it will develop because I know how passionate people are to make it happen, this project is going to stand out, something that everybody's going to be proud of. It's really, I'm asking for your support to approve the project because I really believe it's the right thing to do for city. I know as a first developer that I'm developing this site, I'm taking a huge risk, but I really believe in it. I wouldn't put my money if I wouldn't thought it's not going to work. And I know it's going to benefit the city. It's not just the tax revenue on the property tax and the sales tax, is just beautifying that corner and getting the other development come in line. That's a huge plus for the city to approve the project. And I'm asking for your support.
Well, it hasn't taken away my concerns you're right, thinking 10 years from now, if this problem goes away and I'm wrong, then that's great for us. But if it doesn't go away and I'm not wrong, then we're stuck with 10 times bigger a problem in 10 years than we have now. So I am thinking 10 years in advance, and I'm not fully convinced to put my name on it looking down the road 10 years, just as you suggested.
Sure.
I think it's kind of, how do we know all of this is going to come up roses? I mean, we can predict that with a single-family dwelling and say that we're putting this single-family dwelling in here with these houses that are all single-family dwellings. It's reasonable to assume that this house will prosper just like the other houses, or businesses alike that go in next door to each other. But this is totally foreign. There's nothing that we have in the city that sits above a commercial property that goes up 3 more floors of residential in commercial area. Nothing.
Just 3,000 square foot retail is not a huge square footage that we are not building a shopping center that we need to worry about it. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a coffee shop. People, they're going to go there, get their coffee, park in the city parking lot for 20, 30 minutes and leave. It's not something that they're going to be there and they're staying there and,
Okay.
Dr. Moats.
I think it's a great project.
Thank you.
I was prepared to vote for it last time, and now it's even better. My question is, you're taking the financial risk, the city isn't, and Mr. Cordero was talking about penciling things out, but it would seem to me that you'll be able to charge more rent by having larger units and by being able to provide parking for every unit. I think it'll be a great financial success. I don't see where the city's taking a risk here. Do you? That's my question.
You are absolutely correct. I mean, when I believe everything happening in life is for blessing. And when you recommend that we need to take a look at the additional parking, I said, that's great. Let's take a look at it, how we can create it. Even though we lost 2,000 square foot retail, I'm happy that we're gaining 27 parking spaces because I can charge higher rent. We give them a bigger square footage on upstairs apartment. So I agree with, I did the math based on our pro forma, our number going up. And since we have less retail, I have to charge higher rent because I don't need to worry about 5,500 square foot retail. I got just 3,000 square foot. So I can be able to, since I don't need to worry about the leasing as much, I can be picky about who I can pick. I can charge higher rent, and my number is going to work just fine.
Ms. Waterfield?
I have a question. In the very first project you brought to us,
your parking wasn't going to be a pass-through below. You couldn't go in Main Street and come out the back alley. There was going to be a gate in the middle. Is that gate still going to be there?
No.
Or is it going to be a pass-through from Main Street and go to the alley or vice versa?
No, we're removing the gate. It make it easier for a customer to pass through.
There won't be a gate?
No, I mean, it's still, they haven't, I want to make it, the gate is optional for us at this stage, and it depends on how security works in the area. If we think we're going to have a problem, or, as far as security goes, we put the gates in place. If we don't have a security problem, we don't need to put a gate back in there.
Okay, because my only concern was it would make it much more convenient for allowing people to have the flow through that live there and work there and go in and out. I understand the gate. The gate was going to go right in the middle of the parking lot, as you had suggested in your first project that was brought to us. But this is Santa Maria, and we have four-wheel drives, we have big trucks, so I assume that the height is going to be appropriate for those vehicles as well.
Correct.
Those concerns we don't.
Correct. Yes.
To worry about. Also, you talk about coffee shops and understanding Mr. Cadero's concerns. What if there's a nail shop in there and they're in there till 7, 8 o'clock at night? You guys have a plan for that as well?
Correct. We have the manager on the side.
Mr. Poison, no comments? Okay.
I like the old one, so I'm all over this one.
Okay.
Did you have balconies in the last one? Or
Yes, they did, yeah.
I didn't notice the balconies until right now.
It's a really beautiful project. I mean, I know you're looking different than what I look at. It's going to be gorgeous when you come and take a look at Main and Broadway is a key corner. I realize that. And we have to put something in there that attract the rest of the city. When we're going to develop the downtown, it's really going to stand out. And by having that building in there, it's going to benefit the city, for sure.
Thank you. Any other questions of the applicants? Madam Clerk, do we have any written correspondence?
No, Madam Mayor, we do not.
So I'll open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do you have any requests to speak in favor or opposition?
We have 3 requests to speak.
3 requests to speak. Okay. Ken Huff, followed by Nancy Stewart, followed by Mr. Armento. Good evening, Mr. Huff.
Good evening, Mayor Patino. Thank you. And good evening, councilors. I'm Ken Huff. I'm representing Santa Barbara County Action Network. For 16 years, SBCAN has been working to protect agricultural land, to promote affordable housing, and support efficient transportation, especially by developing communities that are easy to walk in. The project before you this evening will advance all of those objectives, and SBCAN urges you to approve it. I think that in SBCAN's 16 years, and certainly the 5 years I've been involved, we've not had to battle the city regarding annexation of agricultural lands. The city started as a small area in a vast valley of agriculture. In a century or more, the city has grown to replace many square miles of prime ag land with residential and commercial development. We hope that we're done with that kind of expansion and that we're ready to grow up and not out. As you know, agriculture is our economic mainstay here in the valley, throughout our county. The proposed project is exactly the type of urban development that is needed to revitalize the downtown, provide housing that's affordable to working people, and to reduce pressure to expand into agricultural lands. There isn't anywhere in Santa Maria where there are 3 stories of residential above retail. You're right, Councilmember Cordero. But there should be, and if there is any place where it would work, it would be on this corner. We urge you to accept the Planning Commission's and staff's recommendation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nancy Stewart, followed by Ernest Armenta.
Nancy Stewart, 901 West Main Street. Just have a couple of comments. I think it's a beautiful project. The building looks beautiful. I'd like to answer Mr. Cordero a little bit. The city's been working on downtown for a long, long time, trying to make it better. And I think we have to make a first step. And this is a beautiful first step. We'll grow from here. If you have doubts that it's going to work, it still is a first step. We've been sitting around waiting to do something. This is doing something, and it's a beautiful project, in my opinion. But I do have one thought that the builders could probably think about, and the planning department too. I drive frequently from West Main Street going east. And what I will see on that project is the back of the building, what I'm calling the back, the west side. And it's very plain. The rest of it looks beautiful, but just those windows lined up, they look like the old downtown Froome Hotel or California Hotel that we had back there. We need to do just a little bit of exterior decor on that back side, on the west side. Otherwise, I think the project is a very good start, and I think it looks beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Mr. Armenta.
Ernest Armenta, City of Santa Maria. I'm not opposed to the project. The guy's investing money. He put a good presentation. He's pretty good, Ms. Patino. He was right on that. He had an answer for every question. But my issue is he's going to pay the full amount of the AB 1600 fees, and he's going to have to put out a little bit more if he's going to start intruding onto parking on Chapel and Pine, or to think that the businesses that pay dearly at the town center mall that are still there, struggling to stay there, that he's going to build businesses, and then they're going to move and have their customers come and park at the other parking lot, the town center parking lot. So if he wishes to lease or put in some funds to purchase the Pine and Chapel parking lot or contribute to its maintenance and upkeeping or the repaving, one way or another, he's going to have to put out. We're not selling cheap no more. I wish him the best, but he's going to have to just put out a little bit more, because we're in a financial crisis and we need all the funding we can get. But I'm pretty sure there's no way that I will be able to afford if I had to live there, or anybody else there working folks. No one's going to be able to afford if he's going to put higher rent, so it's not affordable housing. They want to make it like downtown San Luis Obispo and downtown Santa Barbara. That's what it is. Even staff mentioned that on the news. So good luck, and you guys make the best decision, because at the end, we the community, when you guys are long gone and have been removed from this board, we'll still be paying for it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll close the public hearing and bring this item back to the council for discussion or a motion. Mr. Boyson?
Well, Madam Mayor, first of all, Mr. Nick Farjan, thank you so much for your investment and your commitments to the city of Santa Maria. I love this project. I think that this is exactly what is needed to get downtown started. I love the idea that it's being done with private money, that yes, he will be paying full AB 1600 fees for all of his residential. The commercial, we have established some certain concessions for commercial area. I apologize that you're not going to have the extra 2,000 square feet of commercial, because that's what generates sales tax and a vibrancy for the downtown area. But those are the compromises that we have to make to get a good project approved. So I'm 100% supportive of this project, and would be ready to make a motion to that extent if there are no other comments.
I haven't commented on it, and I understand where Mr. Cordero was coming from, and I also was very concerned about parking. But as Ms. Stewart said, we need to start someplace. Infill is really difficult. I probably have never voted for an infill project in all my years on the council, and we always know what we don't want, but sometimes we really don't know what we want unless it is shown to us. I think this is a great first step. I think it's very important. Yes, my whole family drives big trucks, and there's a lot of issues. I drive a smaller car, And it's terrible to have to park next to all these big trucks and these SUVs and these Suburbans all the time, but that's what people drive around here. That's Santa Maria, and that's acceptable. I can barely park my car right, much, and as small as it is. But I think it's so important that we do take that first step. I think it's really important. And I think you're right, Ms. Stewart. We've been working with trying to do something with downtown Santa Maria for so long and go west. And I think this is probably a good first step. Ms. Waterfield?
And Mr. Ben, I want to thank you so much for listening to the council. We wanted more parking. You gave us more parking. You reduced your square footage, and you did give us what we requested. And I think we need to keep our word in bringing it forward and saying, that this is a great project. So if Councilmember Boyson would like to make that
I'd like to
motion.
talk to you.
Okay, Mr. Cordero?
I guess all of us up here want to thank you for your efforts and what you've done and the ideas. I said that your efforts here were very innovative. But somebody's got to ask the hard questions, and it's still a bit scary to me to think that we could be jeopardizing something that we now have that we think is good. But that's not the only thing that could go in there. I mean, they could put a gas station back in there. It would probably do just fine. I don't think it would be as aesthetic as your building, but it would probably do just fine. And then we wouldn't have to look at the kind of a dry backdrop that that she's concerned about looking at when she's eastbound on Main Street. So it's not that I don't want the project. It's that it's difficult to think that far in advance and say that it's going to work. If it doesn't work, we're the city. You might lose some money, but you can move on, and that building is going to be there. And the people that sit in these chairs the next 2 or 3 times after all of us are gone will have to deal whatever those residuals are or whatever payment is. So I pray that I'm wrong. Don't get me wrong. This has nothing to do with you. I pray that I'm wrong, and that everything will come out roses, like I said before. So it's not a question of not wanting it. I'm just afraid of it because maybe it's so unique. Maybe I'm too old. Whatever those things are. So thank you very much. I appreciate all of the extra work that you did.
Dr. Moats?
Yeah, I don't share Mr. Cordero's concern that this might not work out. I think it's going to work out beautifully. And I'd like to compliment you on the stunning beauty of the building and the setbacks and balconies. I think it'll be a great benefit to the city of Santa Maria to have such a beautiful structure.
Okay.
So with that, Madam Mayor, I would, and I'll ask Mr. Ng to help me with this resolution, to adopt resolution number 2737, which approves, or which approving the Gateway Mixed Use Downtown Permit DT 2017-33.
-00, actually, it is 33, yes.
33. And that's my motion. Oh,
Okay.
got it. Okay. So, yeah, we'll accept staff's recommendation.
It's been moved and second to accept staff's recommendation. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Boyson.
Aye.
Councilmember Waterfield. Councilmember Cordero.
Well, I've just got to go with my colleagues and Mr. Ng and other people that have been in Santa Maria longer than I, and I'll vote for this and hope that we have a 5-0 vote. But I'm still spooked.
Is that a yes?
I'd say yes.
Councilmember Moats.
Aye.
And Madam Mayor Patino.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item is another public hearing. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title?
The City Council will consider an ordinance amending the Santa Maria Municipal Code to prohibit all cannabis uses in the City of Santa Maria, including manufacturing, processing, laboratory testing, labeling, storing, and wholesale and retail distribution of cannabis, except for medical marijuana deliveries from dispensaries located outside the City of Santa Maria.
Staff report is to be made by Assistant City Attorney, Mr. Cinco.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. The city's current medical marijuana regulations are in Chapter 12-54. It was established in 2013, and at that time, the council banned medical marijuana dispensaries because that was all that was around. The council, as this issue developed and dispensaries became mobile and other types of uses for cannabis products became aware, the council approved amendments to Chapter 1254 in December 2015 that addressed those issues and banned all uses of medical marijuana. That was all that was available at the time, except for the city decided to allow the delivery of medical marijuana to patients residing in the city, provided that the product came from dispensaries located outside the city. And that remains the current status quo. With the impending likely passage of Proposition 64 in August 2016, City Council adopted an urgency ordinance banning the cultivation, manufacturing, processing, laboratory testing, labeling, storing, and wholesale and retail distribution of any and all cannabis products, and again, accepting deliveries of medical marijuana for patients from dispensaries located outside the city limits. The ordinance was passed by the required 4/5 majority. The ordinance was also extended for a period of 10 months in September 2016. That period of time runs out in August of this. I'm sorry, that's not correct. I forgot one. It was extended one more time after that, after the passage of Proposition 64 in November 2016. The ordinance was scheduled to expire at that time in August of 2017, but the council extended it one more time for the last extension, and it will currently expire in on August 14th, 2018. Staff would like to have the council either adopt an ordinance that maintains the status quo at this time, because we feel that we don't want to wait till August or close to August and find out that the council might want to make some changes to the status quo. That is one of the alternatives that's discussed in the staff report. You have several options. You can approve the ordinance, basically keeping the status quo, or direct staff to bring back another ordinance at a future time, considering other options, regulating and tax like the city of Santa Barbara or the city of Lompoc, or banning all uses, including deliveries of all kinds. That's an option. Or allowing some uses, manufacturing, testing, but not distribution, not deliveries, or whatever. If council wishes to direct staff to come back with another ordinance, we would appreciate some direction, and we will do so, and we'll have time before the ordinance expires in August 2018. That ends my staff report. I am available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cinco. Any questions? Mr.
I
Cinco?
do.
Go ahead,
I
Ms.
have a
Waterfield.
question in regards to the delivery of the medical marijuana. I believe that we had authorized the delivery of only medical marijuana, but in the way the situation is today, how do we know what is medical marijuana being delivered to the Santa Maria or what is a recreational? We have no control over that. So in my mind, I see a whole flux of recreational marijuana being delivered to the city of Santa Maria. So do we just ban the delivery, then whoever needs a medical, just have the physician or whomever prescribes this type of item to take it to a pharmacy medication to. That's my concern.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Waterfield,
The city does require a business license for any delivery services, and we make them sign an acknowledgement saying that they will only deliver medical marijuana to patients within the city limits and that they have to store their product outside the city limits. Enforcement would be difficult even
That's
under
right,
that
yeah,
circumstances, no question. However, if we find somebody delivering anything and they don't have a business license, we can take enforcement action. It'll be relatively easy to check the list.
But what's going to stop them from coming back and delivering again in a different vehicle?
Oh, you're absolutely
You know,
right.
it's
an
you know,
enforcement.
It
It's certainly a
is. It's an
difficult
enforcement nightmare that we cannot,
Yeah.
I don't think we can ever enforce.
I would argue that even if we ban deliveries, it's still going to be difficult.
It is, but
to
at least we
enforce
got it on the
Yes,
books for
understood.
both. And that's where my concern is. Also, I was concerned about the word cultivation because it just didn't meet my standards, but as I read through the section 612-02, the definitions of cultivation, because I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any involved in planting or growing. I mean, cultivation means after it's up and planted that you can't cultivate it, so, but it does cover that, so I wanted to make sure that whoever's listening in the audience knew that cultivation means involving the planting and growing and harvesting of the marijuana as well.
Agreed, and that reminds me, I forgot to mention that even if the council were to adopt the ordinance before you or adopt an ordinance banning everything, including deliveries of all kinds, we have to allow the cultivation of 6 plants
Right.
in a personal residence, just so that
No.
everyone's clear about that.
And I read that. I read that in the report. But I am just shocked only because I did have a great opportunity this summer to go to Atlanta and sit for a solid week about the effects of not only, the opioids, but with the legalization of marijuana and the effects and everything that it has. And a lot of the information that was brought to us by scientists and medical fields and the feds, they got from Colorado, from their studies of what was going on in other places around the country. And it just really frightened me because they have scientific information about the dumbing down of America. And when kids get a hold of it, it's even worse. They never reach their potential, their mental potential, to be able to do what they were really meant to do. And I'm just very passionate about trying to undo a problem that we can try to do within the city of Santa Maria. Secondhand smoke, and I was asking, where are the secondhand smoke parents in all of this? And what is the effect? And every person, every scientist, every doctor, every Fed agent said secondhand smoke is as though you're inhaling. And so, it just really concerns me. So that's why I'm just speaking out as much as I am in regards to making sure that we've got all our bases covered, even with the delivery. I don't know how my colleagues feel about that, but that's how I feel about it. So I just want to make sure we've got a lot of things covered.
Dr. Moats?
Yeah, Mr. Cinco, my brother-in-law lives on Napomo Mesa, and he's surrounded by greenhouses that have switched from growing flowers to growing marijuana. And he says that he comes home to the odor that smells like skunk on a regular basis. And so this seems to be a real problem. And I've talked with some people in the county that seem to think that commercial marijuana growing in the county of Santa Barbara may be required to be grown in a greenhouse with some sort of ventilation system that keeps the skunk-like smell inside. Now, if you're growing 6 plants in your backyard, I don't know if you know this or not, but do 6 plants make enough odor to become offensive to the nearby neighbors? And do we have the option of requiring people growing 6 plants to do so indoors?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Mr. Councilmember Moats. I don't know what 6 marijuana plants growing outdoors would smell like. That was a trick question, I think, but I didn't fall for it.
I do.
seem to recall, and I apologize for not knowing the answer off the top of my head, but I thought that Proposition 64 did allow us to require the growing to take place indoors.
Really?
Okay, yes, thank you. I'm glad our new assistant city manager knew that. I thought that it was the case, but I wasn't 100% sure. So yes, the answer to your question is we can require it to be grown indoors.
I think we should.
I think, if I may, I think you'll find that the 6 plants won't inundate the neighborhood auriferously. Having stood next to 6 plants many, many times, I just didn't recognize that as terribly offensive, unless they are plants that people are growing, 6 commercial plants that get like 8 feet tall and they end up being this big around. You might have a little problem, but the plants that I've seen in the business are not going to raise that kind of odor problem.
Well, I've never seen one growing in the wild. How tall do they get?
I've got pictures standing in a field of them that are over my head. I'm 6'2".
See, the law doesn't state.
Wow. Did you have any comments, Mr. Boyson?
Well, questions. First of all, Mr. Cinco, I think Dr. Moats brings up an excellent point that I don't believe is part of this ordinance. As far as the 6 plants being grown indoors, should that be made part of this ordinance, or is that a separate item that we should be considering?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Boyson, yes, we would have to add that to the ordinance because it's not part of this proposed ordinance. But that's not a problem. We're coming to you now because if there's changes made, we don't have to act because we have lots of time before August. So we would be glad to, if that was the direction of the council, we would be glad to add that as a provision in the revised ordinance.
And following up on that, I know that we had extensive discussions a couple of years ago on the delivery of medical marijuana, and most of us on the city council felt that it was the compassionate route to take to allow the delivery of medical marijuana within the city limits. Certainly, now, as I understand it, every person over 21 years of age can possess a certain amount of marijuana legally. Is that correct?
That is correct. 28.5 grams.
28.5 grams,
I think that's
so
half an ounce.
half an ounce.
I don't know. Actually, I don't know how much it is. Maybe it's an ounce.
So
It's 28 grams to an ounce.
Okay, so it's an ounce. Thank you.
So, I mean, basically, whether they go out and buy it somewhere else and bring it in town or have it delivered, I agree with you that, I mean, obviously, we're going to require business licenses, and we expect everybody to comply with whatever the rules of that license is, but I mean, it's just like any other business license. If I have a business license to be an attorney and I operate a massage parlor under that business license, I'm doing something that's illegal, correct? And so, I mean, we could have that problem virtually with any business license of somebody doing something that isn't allowed on their specific business license, so.
Okay. And any other questions of Mr. Cinco?
The only thing I would ask, do you feel that this ordinance is, we're doing as much as we possibly can to enforce the elimination of marijuana in Santa Maria as much as we can?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Boyson, yes, I do believe this ordinance, in at least in broad strokes, accomplishes that goal, except for the delivery of medical marijuana, which the ordinance allows because that's the status quo. That's what we've been operating under several years. And if we want to change that, we certainly could. Or we could make the regulatory process for deliveries more rigorous. That's another approach, maybe a middle position, where we could require a kind of a thorough vetting of any delivery companies and require their like route times and stuff, and then follow up and see if there's. I would want to work with the police department before making any promises about enforcement, but theoretically we would have a more rigorous regulation structure. We would have more tools for enforcement to make sure that only medical marijuana was being delivered if that was the council's desire.
Dr. Moats.
Yeah, and Mr. Cinco, I think we should point out that anyone who wants to use marijuana can simply probably drive to Oak Knolls and pick it up in Orchid. Won't that be the truth?
I don't know what the county's rules are going to be. They may, I think they're more focused on the cultivation, but they're still in the environmental review stage, so I don't know what ultimately decisions, but theoretically, they will be having some legal uses of cannabis and who knows, possibly retail purchases in Orchid.
Well, one would think that if they favor cultivation of the plant, they'd also favor sale of the plant. It would be illogical to not link the two.
Waterfield?
Right.
I really feel strongly about completely eliminating the delivery of marijuana any type to the city of Santa Maria. If the rest of my colleagues don't feel that way, I want to make it as rigorous as possible and make it as difficult as possible for them to do it. But also, there was another concern I had when we went through this process, and that was advertising billboards and those type of advertising that people do. Can billboards be put up for advertising marijuana within the city of Santa Maria? Is that in this ordinance?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Waterfield, that is not addressed in this ordinance. I'm not sure it could be effectively addressed unless it's part of Proposition 64. We would have a hard time regulating the content of any advertising. Our sign ordinance is very good at being content neutral, which protects us from constitutional challenges. So it would be very difficult to find a way to pinpoint advertising. However, that being said, we could research that issue because commercial speech is not entitled to as rigorous First Amendment protection as non-commercial speech. So that could be something we could look into and maybe put some reasonable regulations on.
Well, when you look at marijuana and then you look at alcohol and billboards, I don't know if I've seen any. So I would like for you to research that to find out if that's something that can be put in this ordinance as well.
It may already be.
Yeah. And they may have addressed it already, and I don't know.
Same here. I have not. As you know, I've kind of acquired this specialty in cannabis regulations rather recently due to the departure of a valued colleague in our office. So I haven't mastered the details of Proposition 64, and there may be some information in there about advertising and stuff. Or there may be some regulatory stuff that the legislature has done since then that address that issue. But in any case, I will get an answer to you one way or another.
I would appreciate that.
Thank you. Dr. Moats?
I just wanted to say I completely agree with Councilperson Waterfield about restricting marijuana advertising if we can and if it's constitutional. I think it's real bad optics for our high school students to walk past a big billboard advertising marijuana.
Okay, and if no other further questions, I'll open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak?
We have no written communications, and we have 3 requests to speak.
3 requests to speak, thank you. Hunter Jameson, followed by Ernest Armenta, followed by Kathy Staples.
Madam Mayor and City Council, my name is Hunter Jameson. I am a resident of Santa Maria, and I would like to voice strong support for the proposed regulations banning recreational marijuana cultivation and businesses in our city. Please protect our residents, especially our young people, our families, and our town from increased drug-caused impairment, dependency, and addiction. The passage of Proposition 64 did not mandate commercial marijuana businesses in Santa Maria. That is a local decision and is now up to you. I was going to support the delivery provision since it was part of the proposed ordinance, but if delivery could be prohibited for medical marijuana, maybe that is something that could be considered. I would note that delivery services have existed, of course, and under state law now, they must be allied with dispensaries that are licensed and regulated by the state and likely by their home area as well. I think at least for now, those licenses have to be either, there have to be differentiation between medical licenses and what they call adult use, which is the recreational licenses. But you cannot eliminate all the harmful effects of recreational marijuana businesses outside our city, but you can at least try to reduce harmful effects here, such as these that appeared after Colorado became one of the earliest states to legalize recreational marijuana in 2013. Marijuana-related hospitalizations there increased an annual average of 72% after legalization. Marijuana-related traffic deaths increased 66% on a 4-year annual average after legalization. It is now widely accepted that marijuana use poses increased risks of addiction and harm for adolescents and young people. Before legalization of recreational marijuana, Colorado was the 4th highest state in the country for marijuana use in the last 30 days by young people 12 to 17 years of age. After legalization, it jumped to highest in the country. In 2014 and 15, Colorado again led the nation with youth use 55% higher than the national average. Please do not credit those who might play up the gain they will receive or that they say the city could receive from a, quote, new business opportunity, unquote. Instead, please pass a proposed ordinance or something similar to protect Santa Maria from increased drug-induced harm of dependency, addiction, and disability. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jameson. Ernest Armenta, followed by Kathy Staples.
Ernest Armenta. Oh, yes, Martha's good. Absolutely. Imagine 10 deliveries a day at $50 a delivery. That's $500 a day. 7 days a week, that's $3,500 a week. $14,000 a month, cash, no credit card, over $160,000 a year. Oh, Mayor, the pot industry is thriving here in Santa Maria. You guys are so behind the ball and so late on the free. You can pass it, ban it, whatever you want. There's thousands of people right now listening that are rolling up a good old Leno, L-E-N-O, good old fatty. It's better than popping pills. It's better than going to the doctor. It's better than hitting the wine like some folks in here, or hitting the whiskey, right? The back's hurting, pop a few pills, right? So you just roll yourself a big old fatty. You guys are so behind the ball. And it's good that you guys have a ban. Ban it all you want. It's good. Because the black market, the underground, that's where the money's at. It's good. No sales tax. We don't have to pay no sales tax. We don't have to register. We don't have to report nothing. You have some good, solid friends that ain't going to tell on you. Money in the pocket, Mr. Cordero. The neighbors ain't going to tell. The neighbors are cool. They have no problem with it. Because I don't know where you folks live at, but where I live at, neighbors, we mind our own business. We look out for each other as long as it doesn't hurt our children and hurt our family. We're okay with it. See, because I don't know about everybody else where you folks live at, but our neighbors, we don't tell on each other, especially to the government. That's the last person. As a matter of fact, we do everything we can to keep the government, police, district attorney, judges, and council members out of our business. It's here. The delivery system is thriving. What you guys should be doing, I believe right now the delivery permit fees are how much, Mr. Cinco, if I may ask? How much is the permit for a delivery fee or license?
Mr. Cinco?
Madam Mayor, thank you. I actually do not know. I apologize, Mr. Armenta.
Yeah.
See, ladies and gentlemen, you at home, this is how bad things are. See, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to drain the swamp. It's time to get rid of some of these council members. We have no other choice but to start removing them. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, they're looking out of their own interest. They say the community, but they ain't looking out for you. They'd rather have you pop some pills when you're hurting. And if you don't have health insurance, they'd rather have you suffer. But I tell you one thing, Find a friend that's grown some good pot, some good mota, and they'll take care of you real quick. Thank you, even for free. You don't even have to pay. Just don't tell the narcs. Thank you.
Kathy Staples?
Kathy Staples, Santa Maria. Let's talk about that cash in the pocket a minute. Federal regulations, it's still illegal. Marijuana is illegal in the state of California, and it makes nothing but a boat of nightmare for our chief of police. It's a nightmare for our banking industry. You know that pocket full of cash? You can't put it anywhere. You want to buy that land to grow marijuana on? You can't borrow any money from a bank. It's illegal. A lot of people don't realize what the consequences of marijuana in this community are. So let's be aware that that cash can't be hidden from a federal bank, federal Coast Hills, or any of the other units out there that take money. They cannot take illegal money. And this community needs to know that. There's an enormous consequence, and it's called going to jail upon trying to promote illegal funds into your bank and then send them to Mexico or to Puerto Vallarta or wherever you're going to be sending that money. You can't do that either. We need some real education in this community about what's really happening with illegal marijuana, which is illegal at the federal level. And I'm sorry, Chief, what you're having to face and what your men and women are having to face and being torn between trying to take care and keep us safe here in Santa Maria and know what's coming down the pike. I commend you for the wonderful work that you're doing, and I know everybody up here will support the work that you're doing. And I think we need to educate the public that this isn't a gravy train. This is a boatload of trouble, and it's headed our way. So I'd like to say I support you completely. The phraseology that you need, you've got my support on it. And I believe a lot of people out there would be my voice tonight standing here to tell you, City Council, that they believe in you too, and they want to see this ordinance supported. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Stables. And I want to thank you, Mr. Senko. I realize this was not yours, and so we lost one of our assistant attorneys, and you took it over, and I thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'll close the public hearing and bring this item back to the council or for discussion or a motion.
So my question would be,
Yes.
I mean, should we continue this to include the marijuana growing only? Go ahead.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I was excited. Madam Mayor, Councilmember Boyson, thank you, Logan. He pointed out in my own staff report, which I wrote a while ago, so I forgot. It does say that the proposed ordinance would only allow growing of up to 6 marijuana plants within a private residence in a locked space not visible to the public. I looked at the ordinance to refresh my recollection, and it refers to nothing in this chapter prohibits the right for personal cultivation pursuant to Health and Safety Code section, whatever it was. I don't know what that says, but I assume it says that. So I'm pretty sure that the ordinance it complies with that section, which is why that was in the staff report. And I just don't remember what the language of that section is off the top of my head. So I think we're good. If the council wants to allow medical marijuana deliveries and keep the status quo, we would only be allowing cultivation in private residence pursuant to Prop 64.
Well, I hate to change the medical marijuana delivery. We had a huge discussion on this several years ago, and we certainly had an outpouring of individuals that came before the city council, both for and against, and I would think that that really needs to be a separate hearing if we're going to reconsider that.
Well, of course, I was the lone vote on that, and I did not want it, and I felt that we were making policy based on an individual that everyone liked, and I don't think that's what you base policy on. So I would certainly like to see the deliveries banned. I was the lone vote on that. So
as I would like to see the deliveries banned as well, but also add the research to the billboards and that as well. You know, this is something that we can't control, but I think that if we put it down on paper in black and white to where if somebody came in and they were caught red-handed, we have backup to say, this is what the policy is in the city of Santa Maria. And so I just want to have as much information protecting the city of Santa Maria.
Dr. Moats?
Yeah, I think the ordinance should stand as it is. I, like Councilman Boyson, think there probably should be some delivery for medical marijuana on a compassionate basis. I'm certain that people suffering nausea from chemotherapy or dying or having irreversible, terrible pain from whatever cause should be able to have it delivered to their home. But otherwise, I'm completely in agreement with continuing this ordinance.
Do you know, Dr. Moats, if a person is dying and they are in terrible pain and anything else, they don't have any of their meds, the Percocet or anything else delivered to their home right now, somebody goes and gets it for them.
Well, that's not entirely true
Is it?
either.
Okay,
I
well,
mean, they do deliver.
Do they do
Pharmacies deliver.
Oh, okay. I didn't. Okay,
to homes,
I didn't think
certainly.
they did. Mr. Cordero?
Yep. I'm in agreement with you on the ordinance. I'm interested to see what you find out with regard to the billboards. I personally kind of think if you start tackling the medical marijuana thing, we're going to be, it's just not going to, we're going to have this chambers full with people that either, because it's true or not true, there are going to be a lot of people in here with back problems and all kinds of other things, and I've seen that before coming in the police department's doors. So I would be in favor of that. And I would like to comment that I was discussing with with the city manager on another area. Even though we're not allowing the marijuana, we're trying to divorce ourselves of any use or involvement with marijuana in the city of Santa Maria, we are still going to have to deal with the residuals of that. In other words, if there is a program that comes up and say, hey, we suddenly have 100 people that are suffering from the negatives of using the strong marijuana that it is today. It's much stronger than it was 30, 40 years ago. I thought there should be some way to recover some money. Since we don't do it, we don't allow it, we're still going to have to pay for it. And I've learned that there is already a mechanism in place and that there will be a certain amount of money put aside that we can apply for grants for, just like we do with the
DUI
alcohol grant, where the DUI checkpoints and all of this kind of thing. So there will be a methodology by which we can try to recover some of the money that the city will have to spend for people who abuse the marijuana. Not everybody will, but some people will, and we will recognize ourselves dealing with people in the future that we haven't had to deal with before because they're really smoking this superpower weed. So I'm interested to see what you come back with, Phil, and find out, and I'm in favor of the restrictions that we're working on. Thank you very much.
So,
Madam Mayor, with that, I would introduce an ordinance for the first reading and continue to the next meeting for the second reading and adoption, amending the Santa Maria Municipal Code, prohibiting cannabis uses except deliveries of medical marijuana from dispensaries located outside the city of Santa Maria. And that would be my motion.
okay, but Ms. Waterfield also, the consensus was about the billboards on that.
Is that separate or?
I believe it was direction to research, and we can come back with that.
Correct. And Madam Mayor, Councilmember Boyson, Councilmember Waterfield, even if you pass an ordinance today, we can
Amend
make
it.
changes
Okay.
at the second reading and then just continue it for another second reading.
Okay. Okay, so
That's always an option.
my
Got it.
motion would stand.
Okay, I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Boyson?
Aye.
Councilmember Moats?
Aye.
Councilmember Waterfield? Aye. Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Madam Mayor Patino?
No. Next item is a regular business item. Madam Clerk, could you please read the title?
The City Council will consider appointing Wendy Stockton as interim Assistant City Attorney pending hiring a permanent full-time Assistant City Attorney pursuant to Government Code Section 21221, subsection H, effective January 18th, 2018.
Staff report is to be made by City Attorney Mr. Trujillo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With the resignation of Assistant City Attorney Mollenkopf, the City Attorney's office is short-staffed. A recruitment for replacement is scheduled to begin on January 18th. We anticipate it will take 3 months to have a person in that position. Wendy Stockton, a retiree, is willing to serve in that position. I did have to beg her and get on my knees, but she is willing to come back for $68 an hour or thereabouts. Pursuant to CalPERS rules, the City Council must make the appointment, and therefore we are recommending that the Council make this appointment this evening. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions of Mr. Trujillo? Okay.
Just we should probably do this before she changes her mind, is what you're saying, yeah.
Madam Clerk, do we have any written correspondence or requests to speak?
We have one request to speak.
Okay. Mr. Armenta.
Oh, yeah, well, Ms. Medina, I can't beat it. I mean, you know, this is what I do. This is good. I enjoy this. This is good. I wish these rooms were filled with more people, but hey, I'm not opposed to Mrs. Wendy being appointed as a new assistant attorney. My whole issue here that I think it's time for we, the community, to have an elected city attorney, so you don't get to make this decision that the elected city attorney decides who's going to be their assistant. And he's doing it right now, but I just wanted to make sure that that's the path that I'm on. I'm looking for 3 council members that will give up some of the general funds and put it on the ballot to make the city attorney an elected position. I think it's a good thing. I think as a new elected city attorney, that means Mr. Trujillo can still be the attorney. He just will have to reside here in the city, meaning he will either rent a house or buy a house here. So good luck and welcome back, Wendy, and we're going to have a good year, 2018. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Armenta. Do I hear a motion?
Motion. Let's hire Wendy.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor to adopt a resolution appointing Wendy Stockton as the interim assistant city attorney. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Cordero?
Aye.
Councilmember Moats?
Aye.
Councilmember Boyson?
Aye.
Councilmember Waterfield? Madam Mayor Patino?
Aye. Next item will be a report by the city manager. Mr. Stillwell?
Thank you, Mayor Patino, members of the council. So the action tonight by the council cancels the meeting of February 6th. So then the next meeting of the city council will be February 20th. And projected to be on that agenda will be a update from Home for Good, which is the area's provider of services for homelessness. And so we'll hear an update of what they're doing to address homelessness in our community. Also on the agenda for February 20th is projected to be the second quarter financial report. That concludes my report.
Thank you. The next item is oral reports of council members. Who would like to start? Mr. Boyson?
I have no reportable items. Thank you.
None? Okay. Dr. Moats?
Well, let's see. I went to a meeting between the City Council and the Airport Board on December 20th, where I learned that we don't have any regularly scheduled airline service to anywhere, except for Allegiant taking us intermittently to Las Vegas, and there are hopes that we might at some point get an airlines to take us someplace else.
That's it. And that's it. Okay. Mr. Cordero.
Oh, I don't have anything near that exciting. I attended a badge pinning at the police department on the 27th, and I will tell you that I was extremely proud of many of the people that were promoted, having worked with them in the past, and it was a great day for me to see several of those people that were promoted. And I will say that Chief Hansen puts on a good show. I also attended a CAC meeting at the Hampton Inn in Buellton, and once again was impressed by the work that our new CEO is doing with CAC. She's really moving forward, and I'm not sure what you're going to hear yet, but you're going to hear something from her. She's making an impression, and I think doing a great job for us.
I think she is too. I've met her. We had lunch. I think she's going to be really great. Not that the other one wasn't good.
No,
but this is great.
It's just different.
Yeah. On December 20th, I attended the Santa Maria Public Airport District quarterly meeting. On the 21st, I attended the Central Coast Rescue Mission Community Banquet at the Veterans Memorial Center and the Santa Maria Day Reporting Center holiday celebration. On the 22nd, I attended the Police Department badge pinning and promotions. On January 9th, I attended this Mayor's Task Force on Youth Safety Prevention Steering Committee. On this morning, I did the Ben Hayes Show, and that's about it, other than I did get my flu shot, and I did get my flu. And that is not fun. So, Ms. Waterfield.
On Friday, December the 22nd, I attended the police department's badge pinning, which is always an excellent event to attend anytime. It's just absolutely see all these great men and women of our police department get promoted. I was a guest speaker at the Filipino installation dinner later that Friday evening. January the 4th, I attended LAFCO's meeting in Santa Maria. And on Friday, January 5th, in this conference room, I had a meeting with Steve Battaglia, along with our fire marshal, to discuss some issues that Mr. Battaglia was having with apartment owners. And let's see. And that was it.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes tonight's council meeting. Good night.